In this video, we'll be having a look at the manual bank processing function in Shintaro. To get to the manual bank processing screen, from the home screen, we go into Finance, Bank Functions, and into Manual Bank Processing. We use this screen to manually type the amounts of our statements in, rather than importing a statement like we did in previous e-learning videos on multi-bank processing. So when we click on Manual Bank Processing, we get this screen. Usually, you'll only be manually entering statements when you only have a few records. For example, if you only get a few payments from the bank, and it's not really worth downloading a bank statement and importing it. Or, if you are just starting with Shintaro and you haven't yet got your bank or Centerpay files converted to CSV format, and you can't import them, so you need to type them in manually. This screen can be used for both Centerpay and bank files. So the first thing we do here is select the bank account. In this example, we'll choose the Westpac account. Next, we have the option to enter a control total, which is the total amount of the payments that you're about to enter. If you know what that is, you can put that in this section here, and once we've entered the transactions, it will check that we got it right. This is to prevent typos, so we know that our records total to $1,060.95, so we put that in here as credits, and we have no debits. So the control total now shows $1,060.95. The next step is to enter the bank transactions and select the correct tenancies. So we'll put in a date, and we'll put in yesterday's date. And then we press Tab on the keyboard to go to the next field. This is where we put the amount, and the first amount is $276.66. Next we have the description, and you can put in a description, but there's no need to. So we can press Tab on the keyboard to skip this. Then we select the tenancy that we want to allocate the payment to. So this is for George Harrison, and we'll begin to type his surname in here. And here we see his name come up. Next we have the rent component, and if there's a split on the tenancy, the other amount will show in this field. George doesn't have any splits, so all of the money is going to rent. So this screen will be used for tenancies that have one or no splits. Now we can enter another amount with the same date. The payment is $40. We tab past the description and select the tenant as Alex Lifeson. Again, Alex doesn't have another amount, so all of the money is going to rent. We can enter another transaction in now with the same date, and this amount is for $500. We tab past the description, and the tenant is Paul Cook. Notice that the rent component now shows $460 and the other amount shows $40, and in the credit transaction type, furniture payment has defaulted here. So Paul has one split, a fortnightly furniture payment, and Shintaro has split his money into rent and the other payment for furniture. If we take the other amount away and delete it, all money will go to rent. If we accidentally deleted this, we can remove Paul's name from the tenancy column, type his name in again, and we can see that payment has been split. So this will create two transactions. There'll be a rent transaction and a furniture transaction on his tenancy record. If we want to make sure that Paul only has one split, we can go into the tenancy record by clicking the quick link up here and select his tenancy from this screen. If we go into payment arrangements, we can see the one furniture payment here. So now we'll go back to the manual bank processing screen. So back to the home screen, into finance, bank functions, and manual bank processing. When we click on manual bank processing, this time we get a message. There are existing records in the manual input. Press yes to retain or no to delete. So if we click yes, the system will remember the transactions that we just entered and it will retain that information. If we click no, it will erase the transactions and give us a blank screen. So we want to click yes because we want to keep the transactions that we just entered. And now we need to re-enter the bank account as Westpac and put our control total of $1,060.95 in here again. Now we can enter our last payment for the same date. The amount is for $234.29. And this is for John Fogarty. When we click Tab, we get this message. The selected tenancy has been vacated and cannot allocate rent transactions. Full amount allocated to other. This message is just a warning to tell you that the total payment will go to another amount. When we click OK, we can see the full amount of $234.29 has gone to the other amount column. This is because John has vacated his tenancy. If you pick a tenancy that's vacated, it can't be considered a rent payment because they aren't paying rent anymore, so it can only be considered as something else. So in the transaction type field, we will select what it is, and we would probably say a non-rent payment or a credit. So now we want to generate payments and transfer to bank account, which will allocate these payments to the tenancies. When we click this, we get a warning. The control total for credits does not equal the total keyed. Do you want to continue? And I've looked back on my statement and I can see that Alex's license payment was actually $50, not $40. So we can edit that now. So now this will add up. And when I click Generate Payments and Transfer to Bank Account, we can see that 3 rent payments, 2 other credits, 0 bond, and 0 property fee transactions generated. All transactions have been copied to the bank account. So now when we go into George Harrison's tenancy, we can see the payment in his tenancy transactions ledger. If we have a look at Paul Cook's tenancy, we can see the payment that Shintaro has split into 1 rent payment and 1 furniture payment. Now let's have a look at the manual bank processing 2-line form. So back to the home screen, we go into Finance, Bank Functions, and into the manual bank processing 2-line screen. This screen works in exactly the same way as the manual bank processing form, but it's used if you have more than 1 split in a payment. So we select the bank account as Westpac, and we put the control total in as $1,090. So for the first transaction, we'll select the date as yesterday's date. And the first amount we have is for $460. Then when we select the tenancy for Stephen Prestwich and click Tab, the payment has been split into 1 rent payment and 3 other amounts, as Stephen has a rent payment of $400, a furniture payment of $20, a service payment of $30, and a utilities payment of $10. Now, we don't want this to show as a service payment, and we want to find out what the $30 is for. We can go into his tenancy record, and in his rent record, we can see that Stephen has a $15 weekly garden charge, which will be a $30 charge per fortnight. So now we can go back to the manual bank processing 2-line form and click Yes to retain the records. We select the bank account again, enter the control total of $1,090, and we will drop this list down to select the garden payment. So this one is fine. We can now enter the next payment. So from the same date, we get a warning to say we've already entered transactions for this date and for this bank account, and we'll just click OK. We enter the amount as $630, and the tenant is Roger Daltrey. Again, we can see that Roger has 3 splits after his rent component, and Shintaro has split this payment to reflect Roger's arrangement. Now when we click Generate Payments and Transfer to Bank Account, we see that 2 rent payments, 6 other credits, 0 bond, and 0 property fee transactions have been generated. All transactions have been copied to the bank account. Now when we go into Stephen Prestwich's tenancy, we can see that 4 transactions have been created to reflect the splits in the payment.